Good morning. I'm Councillor Jennifer McKelvey. I am the Chair of Scarborough Community Council. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'd like to now call meeting 19 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held with members of council participating by video conference. City staff are also connecting to the meeting by video conference. As City Hall remains closed, the public can continue to participate electronically and can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. I ask everyone for their patience with any delays and technical issues. The clerk staff have connected all registered speakers to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Scarborough Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. I would like to remind staff to keep their mics muted and their videos turned off unless they need to answer questions or speak to the committee. This will make it easier for me to observe the participants as they debate and vote on items. As part of each agenda item, I will ask members to raise their hand or unmute their mic if they wish to speak. I will then create a speakers list and will call on members when it is their turn to speak. When voting on an item or motion, I ask that members ensure they turn on their video, if applicable, and raise their hand to indicate their vote. Members, I want to remind you that you must submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at scc@toronto.ca to help with your motions. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand and unmute your mic. Seeing none, next we need a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting held on October 16th, 2020.
So moved, Councillor Ainsley.
Moved by Councillor Ainsley. All those in favour? All those opposed? Item carries. The clerk has advised that we have one new item of business. Can I please have a motion to add the new business item? Moved by Councillor Thompson. All those in favour? All those opposed? The item carries. Thank you. Members, we have 9 items on the agenda today. We'll now do the agenda run-through. Item SC 19.1, we have 5 deputants on this. Councillor Crawford, can I hold it in your name? I'm going to say, Councillor Crawford, that was a yes.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
I just wanted to hold in your name with the 5 deputants.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Items 9, and sorry, that was 2746 and 2800 Kingston Road zoning amendment application final report, Ward 20, Statutory Planning Act, RSO 1990. That brings us to item 19.2, 3268 Finch Avenue East zoning amendment application final report, Ward 22, Statutory Planning Act, RSO 1990. Would somebody be able to hold this? There's 3 speakers.
Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Item SC 19.3, 1891 Eglinton Avenue East Official Plan Amendment Application Preliminary Report, Ward 20. Councillor Crawford.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move the motion. I also have, or move the recommendations. I also have a motion to expand the notice area to 300 meters that I believe was sent.
Okay. While they're preparing that, did anybody have any questions on this item? Go ahead, Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. I'll move that.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? All those in favor? All those opposed? Item SC 19.3 carries. That brings us to item SC 19.4, 3459 to 3471 Shepherd Avenue East zoning amendment application preliminary report, Ward 22. Does anybody have questions on the items? Is someone willing to move staff recommendations? Councillor Lai, all those in favor? All those opposed? Item carries. Item 19.55, Corporate Drive, Official Plan Amendment Application, Preliminary Report, Ward 24. Any questions on this item? Okay, Councillor Ainsley, would you like to move staff recommendations?
I will. I also have an amendment to increase the notification area to 300 meters.
Okay, we'll give staff a moment to pull that up. Go ahead, Councillor Ainsley.
Yep, so I'm moving a motion to increase the distribution area from 120 meters to 300 meters, with any additional cost to be borne by the applicant.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you.
Ainsley. Would anybody like to speak to the item? Councillor Ainsley is moving the item. All those in favor? All those opposed? Item as amended. Item carries. Do I have to do item as amended? Item as amended. All those in favor? All those opposed? Item carries. That brings us to SC 19.6, Residential Demolition Application, 4111 and 4113 Lawrence Avenue East. Councillor Ainsley?
Yep, thank you. I'm moving recommendation number 3.
We'll give staff a moment to pull it up. Does anybody have questions on the item? Anyone to speak to the item? Okay, we'll vote on the item as moved by Councillor Ainsley. All those in favor? All those opposed? That item carries. That brings us to SC 19.7, Residential Demolition Application 511 Conlins Road in Ward 25. I'm prepared to move recommendation 3. Does anybody have questions on the item? Anyone speak to the item? Okay, we'll call the vote on the item. Item SC 19.7, option 3. All those in favor? Item carries. That brings us to SC 19.8, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes 380 Birchmount Road and 225 Milliken Boulevard, Ward 20 and 25. This is in Councillor Crawford's, part of it in Councillor Crawford's ward.
Yep. I can move that.
Councillor Crawford's moving staff recommendations. Does anybody have questions on the item? Anyone to speak to the item? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, item carries. That brings us to the new item, SC 19.9, Imagining 21st Century Employment Areas, request for a planning and transportation study for the Coronation Drive employment area. I have pre-circulated it. I know Deputy Mayor Thompson has an amendment. Does anybody have questions on the item before he moves that? Okay, seeing no questions. Deputy Mayor Thompson, would you like to move your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe if the clerk would just put this on the screen, and hopefully it's a friendly amendment, Madam Chair, and just basically providing where it says positive attributes as part of your plan. And I think this is a good opportunity for us to look at areas where, commercial areas, business areas where there's a residential area that's in close proximity and so on. There are positive as well as adverse impact and effect. And your motion for this area is very helpful. And from an economic development perspective, we certainly want to look at the attributes and so on and see how we could bring forward some ideas in terms of how to ensure coexistence of the residential area along in the commercial areas. And of course, this is something that, that exists right across the city. And I think this will be a good framework and or blueprint to decide how we handle these types of impact in residential, as well as that of business and commercial areas and so on. So thank you very much, Madam Chair, for moving the motion, and I offer this amendment piece, which I believe it to be friendly, to enhance your motion. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else to speak to this item? So I'll speak quickly. I absolutely find your Deputy Mayor Thompson's amendment to be friendly and very helpful, and I absolutely agree that we need to find the positive attributes because that's what we want to bring more of to this area. This area was traditionally fed by rail, and now it's being fed by trucks, so we need to find a way to make this work with the residential makeup of the surrounding area. So I'm fully supportive of his amendment. I'm hopeful you're all supportive of the 3 recommendations I'm bringing forward. Anyone else to speak on this? Okay, so we can now vote on the item and the 3 recommendations as amended. All those in favor? All those opposed? This item carries. Thank you. That brings us back to the top of the agenda, item SC 19.1. We have 5 deputants that are registered to speak. I would like to call on the first one, Nicole Waldron. You have 5 minutes. We will move to the second deputant. Our first one is not present. So we have Kimberly Fawcett-Smith, hopefully on the line. Also not present. That brings us to our third deputant, Sean McGaffey.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. So my name is Sean McGaffey. I'm a senior planner and urban designer with W&D Associates. I'm here on behalf of Kingston Road Residences, Inc., who is the applicant for this property. Since submission of the application in early 2018, we have worked with staff to refine the proposed massing of the 11-story and the 22-story residential apartment buildings, as well as provide for the inclusion of a 500 square meter POPs area along Kingston Road. So with that being said, we've reviewed the final staff report and we're here to support the staff recommendations as modified by our letter filed on Friday. And that's a result of ECS comments coming after the submission of the final report to Community Council. And we concur with the comments that it's an appropriate restriction to use a holding provision on the zoning. And what that will do is allow for certainty and moving forward with the site plan application process. We're otherwise joined here with Mr. Bob Dragicevic, who is on the line as well, to answer any questions from residents or members of Community Council.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputant?
Nope.
Okay, I believe our next deputant is on the line, Robert Dragicevic.
Good morning. I think Mr. McGaffey covered it off. I'm working alongside him on this particular application. And yes, we do support the staff recommendations subject to the requested modification to include holding provisions on this particular application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the deputant? Okay, thank you for calling in today. Our final deputant on this matter, Paula Masterson. Is Paula on the line?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
I read the recommendations that were about the first application when it was only 13 and 16 stories. So I have to admit I haven't read the final recommendations for this site. So, however, I was concerned about the development that was going to happen, and because I live in the building that abuts to the site that this development would be at, and I went to my neighbors in the community, the 3 the 3 abutting buildings, and we were concerned about the height that we'd have to do for the zoning, and we were concerned also about the density of the units, as this would create a double density for the area, the small area of this location of on the sites. So we were very concerned when I went to the seniors building that the sunlight and skyline would greatly affect them, because that was the 22-story building that would be closest to their building. Many of them are long-term residents, as are the people in the Atahualpa Cooperative Housing building that I'm in. Many people have lived here 25, almost 30 years, and it will have an impact. We've also felt that there was an impact on the infrastructure that has currently had water main issues, and to the neighboring streets to the south of Kingston Road, as well as on Brimley Road. There's been major traffic issues, and that was a concern at a previous meeting that happened in June of 2019. And even though I know the applicant did their own studies, I don't know if the city actually did a study on the traffic plus the parking issues that have occurred in the neighborhood. So we felt that these were great concerns when I went to the people in the neighborhoods. We also noticed that there was, we felt that there could be a vision that was different. This didn't have any mix of anything other than residential, and yet it's supposed to be mixed use, land use, which other developments that are on Kingston Road have incorporated some commercial, sundry kind of commercial, small commercial buildings or units within the building, the residential building. So we felt that would be that would make more sense to have that also here, because we have all the tourists that are coming down into Bluffers Park are looking for even washrooms. They're going to residential homes to seek washrooms. So there's a need there in that area for beyond residential, just strictly residential, and we would hope that you would deliberate a little bit longer on this. I know you want to vote on this quickly. They've had time to go over this, and I know the two representatives that have come to speak on the behalf of this development are wanting to see it push forward. So I just hope that you will thoughtfully take into account that even though we appreciate the redevelopment of the neighborhood, and I know people have been happy to see some of the motels that have been changed, we do see a need for other pieces to be put into this development. Thank you for your time, and I respectfully appreciate further information about this at future time.
Thank you for your deputation. Are there any questions of the deputant?
Yeah, Councillor Carpenter had a quick question.
Yes.
First of all, thank you. I appreciate you coming. And listen, I do recognize the concerns that you have voiced. They are real concerns from you. I just wanted to, if you're aware, so I'll be moving a motion, and I think one of the deputants mentioned that it was a holding provision. So in fact, what that'll mean is we're going to be holding back on a number of provisions from engineering that with regard to water, with regard to solid waste and all of that, that in fact, they will not be able to move forward on this application until they satisfy all that plus a number of different departments in the city. So I just wanted to make you aware, or through a question, is were you aware that this holding provision will ensure that all of the issues that you just mentioned will be dealt with. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And also too, with regard to the site application. So this is a process. We'll be approving the zoning. And then from there, we begin the site plan application process. And many of the concerns that you also mentioned with regard to traffic infiltration, all of that will actually be part of that process, where we'll be looking even more closely at some of the challenges that you had mentioned. So I just want to make sure that you were aware of that process will be happening after the zoning is, if it is approved today.
May I ask you whether the approval of, if you make the approval for the height, though, that's another piece of it, because I know that was a second zoning bylaw that had to be approved, and that's a high rise, and I felt that didn't really fit into the neighborhood, not just myself, but many people looking at overall what was happening. in the community.
So again, as unfortunately, the chair, make sure the chair doesn't step in. We can't ask questions, but what I'll form it in a question
sorry.
to. So I will be asking staff that particular question after, with regard to the density, with regard to the height, and give them the opportunity to explain the rationale behind how they came to that height. So I will just let you know that I will be doing that in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, and I was just going to say that, but Councillor Crawford covered that for me, so thank you. Is there any additional questions of the deputant? Okay, questions of staff?
Yes, I have questions, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
Councillor Crawford?
So I just want to, through the planning department, can you just talk very quickly about the uniqueness of the site and how and I'll be getting into more specific questions about density and all that, but just talk about the uniqueness of the site when you're comparing neighborhoods and how you have to, and this will get, as I get into the density aspect of that, but just talk a bit about the uniqueness of this site and the size of it.
Good morning, Community Council. It's Paul Zuliani here. I'm going to be passing these questions over to Yishan Liu, who's the planner handling the file, along with manager Christian Ventresca. Yishan, if you're there, please take it away.
Madam Speaker, is it possible to have my time started? Because it's been like 45 seconds and we're just starting the questions. Just want to make sure I have an opportunity to have all my questions. Thanks.
Yep, staff are nodding that they'll reset it for you.
Perfect, thanks.
Hello, sorry, my audio wasn't working. I'm calling in by phone now. Can I be heard?
We can hear you.
Yes, I think we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was a delay there. So in terms of the uniqueness of the site, this is such a large site that would be able to support smaller density at a higher height. And in terms of the location of the site, it is very separated from the neighborhoods area. So because of the increased separation distances, there'd be less impact on the neighborhood area.
Okay, thank you. And as we were going through the process, there was initial application in 2019, had a certain amount of density. I forget the FSI, but in fact, through the process you've had over the last year and a half, you've actually brought the density down on the site. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the original application came in at a density of 4.23, and that's been decreased to 3.75 through the review process.
3.75.
So that would be in line with the standard typical mid-rise site, and that's actually lower than the recent development across the street.
Okay, so similar to the density across the street then?
Lower density than the one across the street.
Okay. Now, again, as the deputy and a number of community people have mentioned, we originally had the maximum story of the one building at 16. It's gone up to 22 stories. So when you look at the site just quickly, it looks like we've increased density. We have a building that goes a little beyond the mid-rise guidelines. It's actually 22 stories. So can you just talk a bit about, number one, is this a precedent? This is concern in the community that we're starting to increase density along Kingston Road. All of a sudden now we have tall towers. We're going to be getting tall towers everywhere. So you can just talk about how you actually decreased density, but you have a larger tower as part of the application.
So density is a factor of the overall lot size. So although the 16 tower portion of the 16-story building has gotten taller, the original 13-story building on the shallower side has decreased in height to 11 stories. So that was part of the factor. The other factor is that although it's the tower portion of the taller building that's gotten taller, it was actually slimmed down, and the separation distance towards other buildings and lots in the area has increased. And the base building has remained consistent at 7 stories, so that hasn't gone up at all. So although you might have longer shadowing with the 22-story building, because it's a slimmer building, it would be faster moving and there'd be overall less shadowing impact. In terms of whether this would be precedent setting, as part of the review, we did have the developer submit a block context plan just to evaluate how the block could potentially redevelop in this area. And we did find that this was the only site that was deep enough, large enough, and sufficiently separated enough from the neighborhoods area to allow for this type of height.
Great. And also, can you comment too, as part of the process and the changes that occurred, in fact, and this brings into why the tower is probably 22 stories, but there's more open space and green space that is actually on the site now compared to the first application. I know there was a Pops a park put in there, but can you just talk a bit about having a little bit more open space and green space on this new application as opposed to the first one?
Great. Sorry, I forgot to bring that up earlier. So one of the changes through the review was also that the taller building is now set back further away from the street. So as a result, we are able to have this publicly accessible, privately owned open space that would be essentially park space that the public would be able to use.
Great. Okay, those are all my questions.
500 square meters.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions of staff? Just waiting for my screen to change back. Maybe you can unmute if there is. Can't see you. Okay, hearing none. Anyone to speak to the item?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Okay, Councillor Crawford, floor is yours.
I do have a technical motion that has been provided to me by staff. If I could first of all move that. And this is in essence a holding provision, a typical holding provision that we put in to ensure certain criteria are met prior to giving all approvals to build the site. That's in essence what that is. There's some issues around engineering. Staff gave that to me and they're supportive of that. First of all, this particular application is an example of some of the changes that are taking place, and I think with a lot of my colleagues will understand that all across Scarborough, all across a lot of our avenues in Scarborough, and specifically along Kingston Road, all the way from the beach all the way out to just before Port Union Road. And these changes that are occurring are led by a number of policies, the growth provincial growth policy, Toronto official plan, our mid-rise guidelines that really looks at density and increased density along avenues. The community, my community, you know, when I'm looking at from Victoria Park all the way out to Markham Road, are generally supportive of the development that is taking place because they recognize we do need to revitalize Kingston Road, and I think my other two colleagues, Councillor Ainsley and McKelvey, would recognize that as well. They recognize that, you know, Kingston Road 40 or 50 years ago, you know, was a major thoroughfare in and out of the city. It was kind of a gateway. We had lots of motels, we had car lots, car repairs, all kinds of other businesses. And it had a different purpose 40, 50 years ago. It has a different purpose now as we start seeing this revitalization. And really what changes that are occurring, and we're starting to see a lot of that, is to look at more attractive mixed-use residential commercial areas, walkable, livable areas. And I think the policies that the province and the city have are trying to push towards that. As I said, we're starting to see that. One of the main concerns from my community, and I think other communities, is density. And they ask the question of how much is too much? And that's, you know, what's the impact on the neighborhoods when this kind of density comes in? I get that. Those are valid questions that the community has, and they should be having them. And they should be questioning that. When we're looking at the process or the development process, it's a long process. You know, it could take upwards of, you know, 2-3 years sometimes. But it's a process of partnerships. It's a process of a partnership between the community, between the city, and between the developer. And it's critically important that we have those three components moving forward together, working well to ensure that we kind of have the best outcomes for everybody. This particular site, it's at Brimley and Kingston Road. It has been described in years past as one of the motel corners of Scarborough. There used to be 7 motels almost back to back in this particular corner. This application is removing 2 of those motels, down to, I think, maybe 1, maybe 3 motels left in that particular site. It is a unique site. It's a triangle between Kingston Road, St. Clair, and Brimley. It is an area that has 3 apartments. It has a Bell Canada Centre, it has a Canadian Tire, and it has some townhomes on the north side by St. Clair. It is a large site, as city planning have mentioned, but through this process, we have actually reduced the density. Planning have suggested that this particular site can manage a higher density just because of the sheer size of that. But what we have done through this process is opened up more green space. We've opened up actually more space. We actually have a park there on Kingston Road, a 500-meter park that will enable the community to benefit from that. It did start out as a 13 to 16 story, but again, it has now, looking at the proposal you have, is 11 and 22 stories. And I think that has been one of the big concerns in the community, and understandably too, is that it's going from 16 to 22 stories. Thinking that we're actually adding more density, we're actually adding more people there. In fact, we have brought the density down. And staff have said, even though it's 22 stories, it is at the back part of the site and does fit in with the area of that particular site. When you're looking at the setbacks, when you're looking at the relationship to the building, to the street, it does meet the needs. But I recognize the concerns from the residents on the density on that site, and they're valid concerns. And when you're looking at the concerns that they have, and it's typical of a lot of these kind of sites that we all deal with, you're looking at traffic infiltration, sewer, water impact, congestion, safety, and overall impact to the community. And again, as I said, very valid and important questions. A lot of those issues, in fact, will be dealt in the next process, which is the site plan application process, where we'll be looking at detail on the traffic infiltration, on the water and sewage, and that the motion I just moved, again, it's a holding provision to ensure that we don't move forward until we look at all those issues. But staff have said, and recognizing that it is a process, that they do now feel comfortable with this application before them. And I've had some community members say, well, we need to defer this. We need to have more community consultation. I just want to let them know, if they're listening, that in fact we are continuing to have that conversation. Just because if this is passed today doesn't mean that the conversations do not stop. In fact, they'll continue over the next year or two as we look at the site plan application on a lot of the details that they've been mentioning. So on that, Madam Chair, I will be supporting this application, recognizing that it is part of a lot of change happening on Kingston Road. And we need to ensure that we always have the right conversations with the community as we move forward on that. So on that, I just want to thank planning for the incredible work that they've done over the last year and a half. And of course, the applicant for working with me and the community on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Sorry, just one moment. We're checking technical item here. I have just been informed that one of the deputants had been trying to get into the meeting and was not able to. So the staff are recommending that we continue to hold this item for a few more minutes while we try to connect her, and then I will give Councillor Crawford again the time to speak again to the item. So we will hold this and move quickly to 19.2, but then we will come back should we be able to connect the deputant. So item 19.2, we have 3 deputants. The first is Sofia Canavaz-Gonzalez. Do we have Sofia on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Okay, thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. As you know, my name is Sofia Canavas-Gonzalez. I'm from Bahar Planning and Design Limited, the planning consultant for the owner. The proposed application at 3268 Finch Avenue East in Scarborough seeks to construct the 13-story mid-rise building with a total number of 276 units and 314 parking spaces in a 3-level underground parking garage. Total gross floor area is 25,885 square meters. So that results in a floor space index of 6.38 times the area of the lot. There are also 14 proposed townhouses that will front along Finch Avenue East in Bridletown Circle. These will be live-work units. So I have read the report myself that has been prepared by staff, and I agree with the recommendations within. We have read the correspondence from Peter Smith at Bousfields. My client has been in discussions with the owners at 2900 Finch Avenue East and has agreed to provide additional relief on the east side yard setback from 0.3 meters to 3 meters. We ask that it be reflected as a technical change under recommendation 3. This is regarding the performance standard 568 in attachment 7. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation. Are there any questions of the deputant? Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you very much. And Madam Speaker, and to the representative for the applicant, I didn't quite catch her name. It didn't come through clearly. What is your name, ma'am?
Hi, Councillor
Hi.
Thompson.
Hi.
Sophia Cannabis.
Okay,
Gonzalez.
thank you. Thank you very much. It didn't come through clearly. It was
Sorry about
technical.
that. I'm on.
I don't think it's your fault.
Yeah.
It's just the technical things. You spoke about the setback from 0.3 meters to 3 meters, both in terms of attachment 7 and 8. Staff has actually given me a motion to move to address that. That satisfies the requirement that is needed for that.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by the requirement.
So it's currently you mentioned it was 0.3 meters, correct?
Yes, the
Right, and
bylaws states 0.3 meters.
Right, but you're making it bigger. Is that correct?
Yes.
Making it larger. You're creating more
Yes.
of a separation, a buffer between the adjacent property.
Yes.
Right. So that obviously helps both parties. And
Yes.
That's beneficial. Okay. And that was a concern by the adjacent property owner, correct?
Yes, we had placed the building at 0.3 meters because that was what was recommended by urban design staff back in 2019.
Right.
So-
And you're addressing that now, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
due to their
and-
concerns.
Right, so you're responding to that. Okay, but as far as you understand it, then this application conforms with I believe it's the Finch Warden revitalization review and study that had taken place. I believe was 2010. I believe.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
I have
And
questions of staff.
with apologies, I was the one reading names, so technical difficulties were on my side. We will definitely
No
go to
problem.
questions of staff, but I believe we have 2 other deputants first. So
Okay,
do we
sure.
have Galen Lamb on the line?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Galen Lamb, and I'm a representative, the owner representative of 3268 Finch Avenue. I'm here to answer any questions or concern that the members of a committee have, or also the public may have, and that's all my. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the deputant? Okay, that brings us to our final speaker on this item, Peter Smith.
Yes, thanks very much.
You have 5
my
minutes.
name is Peter Smith. Thank you. I'm a land use planner and a partner with Bousfields, and we're acting for the owners of Bridlewood Mall, which surrounds the site at 3268 Finch to the north and east. And as has been noted, our client did have concerns related to the east side yard setback where it abuts our client's property. Obviously, no fundamental objection to the proposal at all, just that's that one concern in terms of the setback. And so in that regard, I'd like to thank the previous speaker, Ms. Gonzalez, for indicating that the owners of 3268 are in fact agreeable to an amendment to the draft zoning bylaws to increase the east side yard setback to 3 meters to all building elements of that building. And with that, that would resolve the concerns of our client. And I'd just like to thank the owners of 3268 for their cooperation in that regard, as well as city staff. And I'd recommend proceeding. I haven't actually seen the wording, Deputy Mayor, that has been put forward by staff, but I've spoken to staff and I'm sure it does the job. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for this deputant? Okay, seeing none, we have no other deputants. We'll move to questions of staff. I know Deputy Mayor Thompson, you had questions. Go ahead.
Madam Chair. I guess my first question, and I did ask Ms. Gonzalez, I believe, a question around the whether or not and how does this plan, this development and application conforms with the Finch Warden revitalization plan. I just want to have staff comment on that, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will be forwarding these questions to Mr. Renrick Ashby, the planner, senior planner handling this application. Renrick,
thank you.
Take it away.
Renrick may be having some connectivity issues, but in the interest of time, Deputy Mayor, I'll step in and answer the question. So this
thank you very much.
Site, yes, this was a site identified in the Finch Warden revitalization study as a strategic site for redevelopment, and it also encompassing the adjacent site, Bridlewood Mall, which the final deputant represents. So this site allows for densities to kind of step up into the mall site, which would have tower redevelopment, most likely on the outskirts of the mall, incorporating the mall in some point. So we feel it an appropriate transition from surrounding neighborhoods to the mall redevelopment.
And thank you. That's very helpful because that's really what I wanted to get at. And you say that with respect to the development of this site really fits quite well into what is planned for Bridlewood Mall. It's consistent with respect to the planning.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah, it does. It's not exactly what the study sort of saw, but the redevelopment process allowed for us to work through those matters. And ultimately, we feel that this amendment, which I believe you're willing to move, addresses the deputant from Bridlewood Mall's concerns and also creates the ability to even better integrate the two development sites.
And this area is obviously a consistent of a mixed-use development. Right. So let me just go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I realize that people listening may not have seen me nod, so I just wanted to say yes.
Right. Exactly. Thank you. Let me just then turn my attention to the Section 37 pieces that's in the report. The $975,000 for the Kidstown Water Park project. So it really talks about investing in that and the indexing and so on. But it also then says in B, and it actually goes into BC, and it talks about if the funds are not used within 3 years, it will be used for something else in conjunction with the local councillor and so on. Will these funds, which are allocated to the Kidstown Water Park, will it be utilized for that purpose? I mean, I haven't seen the water park lately. What's the extent of the need for development at the water park at the moment?
My understanding in consultation with park staff is that it is on the capital plan to be improved, hopefully on a horizon where, as you know, Section 37 comes in with building permits, so hopefully on a horizon where building permits are pulled and money can be allocated. The reallocation language is a standard wording placed in all Section 37 agreements now, just in case parks decides to pull capital funding from elsewhere and the need is fulfilled, and then we can reallocate it appropriately.
I guess what I wanted to try to understand is $975,000 sufficient with respect to what the capital requirements are for Kidstown Water Park? And if it's not, what portion of it would be required by city contribution, and assuming that the Bridlewood Mall would be part of that as part of Section 37 coming forward, how soon would that actually come into play when we also factor in Bill 197? because the changes in Bill 197 will reduce dramatically the Section 37 contribution benefit. Would not be the case if it's obviously over 2 years?
Well, if secured today or when as part of this approval, it would be indexed. But my understanding from Parks is that this would cover the need for the expansion and redevelopment at Kidstown.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional questions of staff? Waiting for my screen to switch, so just speak up if there is. Okay. Anyone to speak to the item?
Madam Chair.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank the speakers who have spoken, and I want to thank the collaboration between the applicant, certainly, and representatives, and by extension, the owner of Bridlewood, the mall itself. And I'd heard some concerns and rumblings about, the requirement and change. And clearly, the applicant has demonstrated a good neighbor approach with respect to working with the neighbor in order to, in as much as the bylaw says it's 0.3 meters, they have extended it well beyond to address the concerns that their neighbor had. And I think that's really good. I think that Madam Chair, I have the motion in front of us. If staff could just put up the motion, please. Which really addresses the 3 meter increase. And this motion, by the way, the motions have been crafted by legal and planning staff, and they've asked me to submit them. So it really does reflect, and Mr. Smith had indicated he had not seen it, but it does reflect the conversation that we were having regarding the 3 meter setback, and as it relates to attachment 7 and 8 in the report, which seeks to address the issue on the the east side of the property. And so I'm happy to move this, but I'm further happy to speak to the issue in that this development, along with Bridlewood, and while Bridlewood Mall is not in front of us at this particular point in time, staff, with respect to their professionalism and keeping in consistent with respect to what the planning process, which took place as part of the Finch Warden revitalization study and review, are ensuring that this mixed-use development that will take place in this area will be very much in keeping with respect to the plans and growth for this area, as well as the other areas of Scarborough that Councillor Crawford spoke about when he spoke about Kingston Road and the changes that are taking place. If anybody, have not paid attention to Scarborough, we are here. We have now in place tremendous opportunities for development and advancement and progression with respect to building and development. But I have to also say that we are consistent with respect to keeping in mind of the heritage and the consistency with stable neighborhoods and so on, to ensure that development that does take place will not affect the neighborhoods in a way that would be inconsistent with progress and growth and having negative impact. And I want to thank the professional staff, Mr. Ashby, and others, and Christian has responded to the question, and Mr. Zuliani and the entire planning team in the East District, as we call them, the All-Star last week when we met at council in terms of the work that they're doing in the Golden Mile. They've actually been paying a lot of attention, bringing forward a lot of really good build form and design and so on. And this is an example of that with respect to this application. So I'm very pleased to move the amendments that has been drafted by legal staff and planning on behalf of the process. And I speak because there isn't a councillor representing the area at the moment and so on. And so, Madam Chair, those are remarks, and I just simply want to, again, reiterate and thank the staff for the work, thank the applicant, thank the collaboration, the good neighbor policy that is working in effect here right in front of our own eyes. And I'm very pleased to see this. So thank you very much. And Kidstown, looking forward to the investment into the community for our young people in the Scarborough area. I think it's a big win for them. So thanks very much for this great contribution in Section 37, because as we see, and we'll see this very clearly within 2 years, Section 37 benefits are going to be much less, and it's going to have a huge impact for the community as such with respect to the introduction of Bill 197. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Are there any additional speakers? Councillor Lai, 5 minutes. We can't hear her. Apologies, Councillor Lai, we can't hear you. Just one moment. We'll let you start again. Still can't hear you. Uh-oh. Councillor Lai, we're wondering if it's your headset. Do you want to try without the headset?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Thank you, Councillor Lai. Well, you have 5 minutes.
I think it's my headset. Anyways, just wanted to quickly echo Deputy Mayor Thompson's speech about we work together and Scarborough, here we come. And we really need to revitalize a lot of in the Scarborough area. And it's all about collaboration, working together with the developers, with our community, and with city staff. And I cannot thank our city staff in the East Division enough for being so tireless efforts and all that. And look at the community benefit that we have, and we have to, change is coming, and we have to manage the change, and we have to manage. Very important that we manage. No one wants to change, I don't think, but if we can change for the better and build a more vibrant community, I think we're all here to do so. So I just wanted to commend the applicant as well as the neighbor. We have to work together to make our economy grow. And this is a very good example of how we can work together and collaborate all the efforts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lai. Are there any additional speakers on this item? Okay, we'll vote first on Deputy Mayor Thompson's amendments. Sure, we'll pull them up. Okay, as soon as the screen switches back, we'll vote. Okay, thank you. All those in favor? All those opposed? We'll now vote on the item as amended. All those in favor? All those opposed? Item carries. That brings us back to SC 19.1. If you'll give me 1 moment, we'll just pause here and make sure we can get this deputant connected. Thank you. Do we have Kimberly now on the line? Okay, I think we've exhausted options to connect over here. So we will remind anyone that is listening or watching, you can still submit written submissions on this item, as it will be carried forward to council at the end of the month. So with that, then, I did say that I would finish if there were any additional speakers on this item. Okay. Okay, we'll vote first on Councillor Crawford's amendment. We'll pull it up since it's been a little while. Okay, thank you. We'll move the screen back. All those in favor? All those opposed? The amendment carries. On the item as amended, all those in favor? All those opposed? The item carries. Okay, We're going to pull up the bills and bylaws motions. That the Scarborough Community Council pass and declare as the bylaws bills 930 to 931 prepared for the November 9th, 2020 meeting 19 of Community Council. Would someone like to move this motion? Moved by Councillor Ainsley. All those in favor? All those opposed? Item carries. That the Scarborough Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Scarborough Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 19 on November 9th, 2020. Can I have somebody move the motion? Deputy Mayor Thompson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Item carries. And that is it, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to meeting 19 of Scarborough Community Council. Very nice to see all my colleagues on the screen. Looking forward to the day where I get to see you all again in person. Have a good day.
Great job, Madam Chair.
Thank you.